Hello to you and a very special welcome to another tutorial. I promised you in the last tutorial when I showed you how you can finish off nicely the front neck part of a tunic, how to do the sewing of it. So the first one was without a seam. The front was cut with a fold. But this one will be totally different and maybe even easier for you to do, because on the one with a fold in, I pointed it out to you that because of the seams that are happening here, you have a slight opening on the front. But maybe you don't like that. Maybe you would like to put a color on, which then joins exactly in the middle, and you might even want to put a loop and a little button on. If you want that, then you have to choose this variation of how to do it. So that's what I'm going to show you. First of all, I already prepared my fronts, and I did not cut it in a fold. I cut it with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Then I marked the lengths, how I would like to have my opening. I cleaned off both these edges on the bottom, not towards the top, that's not necessary. And already I stitched 1 centimeter my seam allowance from my mark all the way down in the front. That's the first preparation you need to do. The next one is you need to have those two parts cut to do this nice front part. So you cut it, if you wish, a 3 centimeter finished width. You cut it 5 centimeters wide, and you have to cut it the 16 centimeters length of your opening, plus a little bit more on the bottom, as you can see on this picture as well. Here is the cut, to there it's open, and it goes a little bit lower. So I cut this on 20, 21, just any length more what I wish. Again here on this bottom part I stitched my 1 centimeter, which I allowed here already. But you don't need to clean it off because it will all be inside anyway. Then I went to my iron board, ironed each of the long sides that are open here by 1 centimeter over, ironed this little seam apart, and right away I ironed the bottom, which will be later on in the front like that, also by 1 centimeter over. And that's all you need to do, and you can go on your sewing machine and put it all together.
Start by taking your little parts, putting it on the machine with the right side facing you and the left side down and the seam towards you. Now you also take your big part, your front part, and again you have the right side of the material facing you and the left side down. Start on the top where the neck is, put edge on edge together which you cut, and start a 1 centimeter seam which was your allowance. Then immediately look for your last or your first stitches that you had there when you already stitched those seams from these two parts together, because now those two first seam stitches should meet exactly together as I just shown you there. And now edge on edge, do exactly your 1 centimeter seam. Make sure you're not stitching anything on that's lying underneath in the way, so put it away and continue sewing all the way exactly onto this last or first stitch, however you would like to call it there. And make sure, do not go too tight when you stitch onto there. Rather stay like a millimeter away, otherwise something will definitely pull when you want to turn it around later. So now you can check already. Just fold it over once to check your own work to see all the right sides are now facing on the top. All right, exactly where we actually just finished to sew, we can continue. But before we do that, we have to do some little cuttings here. You have to cut now exactly all 4 parts that are meeting there exactly to the point where all your stitches are starting or finishing. Don't cut the threads through, but make sure you really cut all the way against that first stitch. Otherwise, you will not be able to turn it over later, and it will pull practically everywhere. It's not going to lie flat whatsoever. You can see that already here. That one has not been cut open by me yet, or cut onto the stitch, so I can't turn it. It's all 4 parts practically that you have to do this little cut in, as you could see, as I've been doing here right now. And in that moment, when you've done all 4 little cuts, you see automatically that this will be your next seam. With other words, where you stopped sewing is actually your continuation in that corner, but you don't need to start sewing in the corner. That is not necessary. You can start there, which would be absolutely correct, but you can also turn it over and start again on the top. No matter where you start, it doesn't matter. It will be exactly the same. So I show you how on this particular one you can also start on the top again, but make sure the parts are lying flat, and again all your first stitches seams in that corner will meet again, and you do 1 centimeter exactly into the little cut you've just done there. And also, instead of going directly onto your last stitch, you can leave a little bit of a half a millimeter left in between open to make sure nothing will pull now when you turn this over. Now you see I'm just pulling the parts to the right side of the material, and you can see already it has not been ironed yet, but it's lying all right. So now you can make this decision if you just want to iron it completely or stitch against it on the left side like I showed to you on the first tunic video. That means you would be stitching it on the left side practically there. But I decided I show you how easy it is to just stitch around this particular edge, and this gives it of course a different look than the first one if you have this edge just stitched over then. So all you can do is slightly wet your fingertips and rubble out this edge beautifully. Now check underneath that your seam that you ironed apart is still lying apart underneath. And now put this seam exactly on top of each other already on this first stitch, although you will only be turning with 1 stitch in this corner or 1.5, depending how big your stitches is from the edge. But you got to go across there. You cannot just turn totally around. Again, I slightly wet my fingertips and I ribble out this edge to really be able to stitch all the way through to the top. And on the top there, as I will put a color probably on, I don't need to go out with the machine. I just turn over, turn around, go across. That means that little part is already held for me to stitch my neck in later. And this edge was ironed a long time ago, as you remember. So I stitch down. Now I fold this part on the bottom over. Now make sure, do not just fold it over like I showed you here, because then it's bound that these little corners like to show out, and that's not nice again. So I flop it over by 1/3 again into this corner, stitch directly into the corner. Now across, make sure again your seams are exactly on top of each other there, and also on this corner. If I overdo it and show to you, then like that the corner would show out. That's why I fold it over in another 1/3, I would call it, or 1/4, to now go across exactly into my corner, and I'm stitching up on this already ironed over fold there on that edge. And that is my complete tunic front finished already now. I'm also going across there. And now you can see on the other one, it automatically was running on the top apart like that. And you, as I said in the beginning, maybe would like to have one that closes totally as you can see it here. And that, although it has not been ironed yet, it lies totally flat and closes really on the top. Now, if you iron over it again, it will lie even much, much better. But that is actually it for today. So maybe this particular way of doing it with a seam in the front will be for starters maybe slightly easier to do than my first tunic front neck design that I showed you. So make your own decision which will be the right one for you to do. So for once again, I hope I could give you some good advice how to do this. Again, I'm looking forward to some of your comments. And again, I wish you a lovely day with some nice sewing work. And I say goodbye for now from Germany to all of you out there in this beautiful wide world. And I say goodbye und tschüss.